Using the word evil to describe Rosemary Ndlovu is by far an understatement, because going by the horrific nature of crimes she committed, and I will place her just below the devil. Welcome back to ABC Nista Files. And today, our story takes us to Gauteng, South Africa. Gauteng, it is known as the place of gold. It is South Africa's smallest but mostly densely populated and economically powerful province. It generates a large portion of South Africa's GDP, and the most commonly spoken languages here include English, Sesotho, isiZulu, and Afrikaans. And it is here in Gauteng that we have our major character of today's story, Rosemary Ndlovu, a name South Africans will never forget so easily. But who exactly is Rosemary Ndlovu? She was born in Mpumalanga in 1975. She had a relatively normal childhood by completing her high school education before she proceeded to Johannesburg in search of greener pasture, where she joined the South African Police Service and was later promoted to the rank of sergeant. Some of her colleagues will later describe her as a gambling addict who sometimes leave work just to avoid loan sharks, despite her tough demeanor. In 2011, she eventually married her longtime boyfriend, Maurice Mubasa, who worked for the US Embassy. Even though Rosemary was a police officer, she would later turn out to be a serial killer who, out of her own selfish desire, took the lives of 6 members of her family. But the question is, how and why? Despite the fact that Rosemary was making some good money, she chose to gamble her money away rather than support her family, often telling them to take out life insurance policies, which many of them eventually did. And it is here that our third character comes into the story, witness Madala Homu, who happened to be Rosemary's cousin. And Rosemary would go ahead to list herself as his wife in his insurance policy, which for me is a major red flag. And few months later, Homu suddenly disappeared. And with Rosemary being a police officer, she offered to help. And guess what? Homu was found beaten to death in Olifantsfontein. And for his death, Rosemary would go ahead to receive 131,000 rands, making her first major cash out. And despite Rosemary receiving such a large sum of money, she contributed almost nothing to his burial. A year after Homu's death, Rosemary then decided to reach out to her sister Audrey, asking her if they could spend some time together at her place. And to her surprise, Audrey gladly accepted, welcoming Rosemary into her apartment in Tembisa, where they had dinner together. After Rosemary left, the very next day, Audrey's body was found, having been poisoned and strangled. And again, Rosemary will go ahead to receive 700,000 rands of her life insurance. But my question is, what exactly were the police doing? And now, it is 2014, and Rosemary is pregnant with her first and only child with her boyfriend, a daughter they named Makanani. However, the birth of their child still did not fix their issues, as their relationship had always been turbulent. One night, in October of 2015, after a minor argument, Maurice left the house, just as he usually did. But it would be the last time he would be seen alive, because that very same day, Maurice's body was found in Olifantsfontein. He had been stabbed more than 70 times. And as you would expect, no legal action was taken, making him a third victim. Rosemary would go ahead to receive 131,000 rands in insurance policy. And after Maurice's death, Zanele Mota then decided to come spend some time with her sister, Rosemary, due to the fact that Mota was having some financial difficulties at the time. And during this period, she was involved in a hit-and-run accident, which she survived. However, after returning home following her discharge from the hospital, she died the very next morning due to complications from broken ribs and a damaged liver. And when Rosemary was questioned about it, she said she had no idea of how it must have happened. She would then go on to receive 120,000 rands in insurance payments. And by 2017, Maini Mashaba was also murdered after he had been dropped off a day earlier by Rosemary. His body was also found at Olifantsfontein, just like her 2 previous victims, Maurice and Homu. And it was at this point that the insurance company started noticing some red flags after Rosemary had listed herself as his partner in his insurance policy, which prompted them to deny it after she was unable to provide any evidence to back it up. A few months after Mashaba's death, tragedy struck it again when brilliant Mashego went missing. He was later found dead a few days later, with his cell phone records indicating he had last spoken to Rosemary. As suspicion grew, Rosemary denied having any involvement, and she was not cooperative with the authorities, The insurance company also denied her payment after she had listed herself as his mother without any solid proof to back it up. And now, the year is 2018. After Rosemary had successfully murdered 6 of her own family members for money, and she was not ready to slow down anytime soon due to her greed, she then approached a hitman named Ndlovu, a man she had previously arrested for the possession of firearm, asking him if he could murder her sister, Joyce, alongside her 5 children. Ndlovu could not proceed with such an inhumane act, but instead, he decided to report her to the authorities. A sting operation was set up to get enough evidence by luring Rosemary into the plot and getting her to talk about her own plan to murder her own sister alongside her 5 children, with the youngest just 6 months old. And the police officer succeeded in doing that. In a video recorded in 2018, Rosemary, unaware that she was being recorded, told the men she would show them where her sister lived and how she wanted them to be wiped out in a fire incident. She went on to tell them she would check herself into a hospital 2 days earlier before the attack, as part of a plan to create an alibi. And here is the video.
Uthambe manje ne masihamba manje niyohlangana naye ngimbize sihlangane somewhere mina mhlambe ngifake imoto laphana yabona ngimnikezele laphilisi njabule yabona ngimtshele ngithi lamaphilisi lawasi ngithi lamaphilisi asiza ntambama mawulala uwaphuza womkhuhlana ngithi manje kuzingena isizini yomkhuhlana ngithi niwaphuze mani lala ngoba ayalalisana then nina nizokhona ukungena ke akuna ngibuyela la esibhedlela ngibuyela la esibhedlela nayo baba endlini uyazi ukuthi ngila esibhedlela so la esibhedlela ngicelile banginikeze i-pass out bathi ngibuye ngo-4 so lana noma ngafika ngo-5 6 7 akunandaba esilong ngibuyile so ngoba ngithi indawo yokushisa ifuna ngishise kusebusuku siyayibona ngiklini mina nginakucala ngazo mase bangitshela indaba mina kusasa ngiyavuvuka ngiyagijima ngiyekhaya ngicela amalungiselelo ngiyaklima ngenza zonke lezi zinto
more clever ngoba yintwaneni
next week imali izotholakala next week asithi Friday next week.
What a monster! Rosemary was then arrested and charged with 6 counts of murder of her own family members, having pocketed around 1.4 million rands, totaling $90,000 in insurance payout. On the 2nd of October 2021, a trial officially began and almost 40 witnesses testified against her, including families, colleagues, and the hitmen she had hired earlier to kill her sister. During the hearings, Rosemary was often seen smiling and posing for the cameras. It was all a joke to her. She was also consistently hostile, as she even went as far as throwing something at one of the journalists during one of her hearings. And in October of 2023, she was finally found guilty of all charges: 6 counts of premeditated murders, 4 counts of fraud, and 7 counts of incitement to commit murder. She was sentenced to 6 life terms and an additional 70 years for incitement to commit murder and a further 10 years for fraud. If you ask me, that serves her right, and I'm glad the judge showed no empathy whatsoever, as she never cared about her own family. She never cared about losing them one after the other, all because of her own selfish gain. And with this, we have come to the end of today's story. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And until then, we meet in our next video. Goodbye, and take care of yourself.